Okay, hey guys, this is Rick. Just want to go through a couple things. Been having a conversation with a guy on Facebook about God and the Bible, and the he keeps talking about this thing called the Drake equation, which basically says that if anything's possible, given enough time and opportunity, it will happen. Which I think that's bunk number one. Not everything that is possible can and will happen. And number two, the biggest thing is there hasn't been enough time for everything to happen. Um, I was looking forward. I've been watching a video again. It's an old Bonson video where he talks about a lot of stuff to do with evolution and proofs and things. So just a couple notes from it. Random mutation, 1967. Moorhead and Kaplan uh, did a book called The Mathematical, or it was a seminar symposium thing, and then a bunch of people wrote articles and stuff for it, and then they published it. But it's the mathematical challenges to the neo-Darwinian interpretation of evolution. And Eden Murray was one of the people that had stuff put in it, and they basically were breaking down that a lot of the stuff from the theory of evolution that Darwin's put forth and everybody kind of follows along with in the mainstream science and culture, there's just not enough evidence to show that it's accurate and that it's true and that it actually could have happened. Because one of the things, this is actually from a different book. I'm sorry, there's so many things I was jumping around trying to watch the video to get the information together, but one of the other books is by a guy named Denton, Evolution in Crisis, 1986. Actually, whenever I was looking for it, I tried to find the book and found that it's available on Kindle for free. Or I'm not Kindle, but Audible. So I've downloaded it, and that'll be my next one. I'm doing Paul Copan's Is God a Moral Monster right now on Audible. But basically, Denton was talking about evolution. It's Evolution in Crisis, 1986, and the new version is Evolution, a Theory Still in Crisis. But he said that for you to get one single-celled animal to begin, one single-celled organism to get life started, you need at least 100 functional proteins to appear at the same time in the same place. The probability of getting one protein is 10 to the minus 20, which means that's a 1 over a 10 followed by 20 zeros. Okay. I can't find the place in the video. I think I just haven't got far enough into it. This is a Bonson video. It says refuting Islam and evolution or something like that. If you want to look for it on YouTube, maybe eventually I'll get where I'll link it. But it's either in that video or one similar to it. In the same line of thought, they said that for evolution to have taken place, we've kept having them change, how old the Earth is, how old the universe is, and you need a universe that's at least 125 billion years old to get to where we are, to just have the opportunity, because it just has not been enough time for the things necessary to take place to have taken place. So to get one functional protein is 1 over 10 followed by 20 zeros, is 1 in whatever that is chance. Okay, but now you need 100 functional proteins to come together in the same place at the same time. So he says that is 1 over 10 to the minus 2,000. Okay, so to put that in perspective, I think it's 10 to the 80th atoms in the entire universe. But we're expected to believe something that has a 1 in 10 to the 2,000 zeros is possible. That's just to get one cell. Heil and Wicknesson, or Wick Missman, in 1981, a book, Evolution from Space, said that to get the roughly 2,000 enzymes that we have is a 1 in 10 to the negative 40,000. So you need a 10 followed by 40,000 zeros. In the conversation with the guy online, when he's talking about this Drake equation and saying how given enough time that anything that's possible can and will happen, so that means that everything is legit, and everything that we suppose has happened with evolution and stuff has, and that it's legit, just to get the enzymes is 1/10 followed by 40,000 zeros to get 2,000 enzymes. But we're expected to believe that that's how things happen and that it's legit and it's okay. He gave in his part of the conversation online that even if something is 1 to the 7, it's 1 out of 74 trillion, that it's still possible because of the Drake equation. Well, 74 trillion is 74 followed by 12 zeros. And these things I just gave examples for are followed by 20 zeros, 2,000 zeros, and 40,000 zeros. So people just don't understand how far-fetched and how difficult this stuff is to have actually happened. I brought up and even offered to give him a copy of Return of the God Hypothesis from Stephen Meyer to help him understand some of the things that we were talking about and to show him some of the numbers that we're talking about. And he informed me that after he read Dawkins' The God Hypothesis, that he read Return of the God Hypothesis by Stephen Meyer, and that it didn't change anything. And I had mentioned in my part of the conversation how Stephen Meyer showed that some of the different studies and things, I did this in the previous video that I just did because it really fired me up after I read or listened to the book on Audible, and I got my paper copy finally came in. But he read it and doesn't take into account. I mean, in this book, Meyer shows that Krauss is not being honest whenever he talks about how the universe came from nothing. He doesn't believe that nothing is nothing. He thinks this quantum vacuum. And like I said in the last video, where and when do you put this quantum vacuum? Time, space, and matter had to come into existence at once. Even the stuff where he's talking about the multiverse and all, you end up, Meyer says, whenever you get to the bottom of it after he read through, because he went through papers as well as books and stuff, and he said when you get to the bottom of it, Krauss is not saying anything from nothing. There's always something before. It's like an infinite regression, but Krauss doesn't admit that, but Meyer points that out. And then also in the book, Meyer is talking about how, we have, I don't remember the number of organisms that could have existed since the beginning of time versus the number of changes that you can get into just a single cell, the proteins and stuff that make up the DNA out of a single cell, and that it's impossible. You have not had nearly enough time to be able to get to the number that you have to get to make these things work. And it boggles the mind that these guys will accept such flights of fancy and take such leaps of faith and then not accept that it's a leap of faith, not accept that it's not something that is empirically verifiable or it's not something that is actual, but they'll act like it is. That's why I love Frank Turek's book. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. I've said that in the last video. It's crazy how many things they will accept blindly. And you need to watch the video by Bonson. I mean, Bonson passed away after heart surgery in, I think it was 1995. And these books and things that he's quoting from in this video are from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so, I mean, these are things that we've known about for decades, but it's just like he says in the video, only a very small number of biologists and physicists and people like that actually know the state of the debate and what the information is for and against Darwinism. And the rest of the people out there are thinking that it's like, there's a lot of people, they say evolution is a fact. It's been proven it's a fact, and it's not. It's a theory, and it's a theory that doesn't answer and doesn't do what it says it can do. Just one example from the God hypothesis says, talking about living systems and proteins and stuff. So on page 290, about halfway down, it says, Instead, the cell, like individual genes or proteins, faces an extreme combinatorial problem. Tampa and Rose calculate, building on the work of protein scientist Cyrus Leventhal, that there are a whopping 10 to the 79, 1, 2, 3, so 79 billion, 10 to the 79 billion different ways of combining just the proteins in a relatively simple unicellular yeast. That number only grows exponentially larger when biologists attempt to calculate the number of possible ways of combining all the proteins and all the other large molecular components necessary for that one-celled organism, including the DNA and RNA molecules, ribosomes, lipids, glycolipid molecules, and others. The number of possible combinations of these cellular components, called the interactome, vastly exceeds the number of elementary particles in the universe, 10 to the 80, and even the number of events since the Big Bang, 10 to the 139. So that's 10 followed by 139 zeros. That's the number of events that have taken place since the Big Bang, if it was, 16, 17 billion years ago. So you have 10 to the 139 possible events that have taken place since the Big Bang, but just in one single-celled yeast, there's 10 to the 79 billion possible ways to combine those amino acids and stuff. So it's physically and completely impossible to have exhausted all the different combinations in 17 billion years. It's literally 10 to the 139, 10 followed by 139 zeros, or the number of combinations is 10 with 79 billion zeros. It boggles my mind how people have got the idea that evolution is just fact and that it's proven, and people like me who are going after the truth, trying to, and this guy online is telling me how I'm simply going and doing what confirmation bias. How? I overshared, just like I'm oversharing now. I mean, I said in my original video how I had issues with a literature teacher that was a former nun, and she had said, Bible's good literature, but it's not the Word of God. Had all the people talking about it's a translation of translation. I mean, it's not a translation of a translation of a translation. We have the original Greek manuscripts that we go back to and translate from, so you're not taking one translation and then going and doing another translation off of that translation, then doing a translation off of that translation. The Bibles that you have in your hands today, when you open up an ESV, you open up a King James Bible, you open a King James Bible, you open up a ESV, Holman Christian Standard Bible, you open up a RSV, you open up a American Standard Christian, American. Sorry, I'm very frustrated. It's just hard whenever you deal with people and to be called a sycophant in this dialogue with this person, when the last thing I want is confirmation bias. That's why I read things from both sides. That's why I watch videos of debates to learn. I want to know what both sides say. I want to know where their information comes from. I want to know why they believe what they do, so I can either validate what I believe by finding something that supports it, or find out I'm wrong so I can change my mind and believe something else. And it's like I said told a handful of people, and I said in this online dialogue on Facebook, there was a time in my life that I desperately wanted atheism to be true. When you think about your life and you think about sin, and that's something that we'll talk about in another video, people just don't understand how awful sin is, as bad as I want to try to understand it and feel like I have a grasp of it. I don't understand it. Sin is just so horrible. People don't understand. The smallest sin is so horrible. We're just so inundated with sin and so inundated with the way things are in the world now that we overlook so much and don't even notice it. We're desensitized. And Paul Washer is a really good teacher, and he talks about how if you could take a projector and show what people have been thinking and doing today, thinking and doing since they walked in the church for that service, thinking and doing that week. If you could take a projector and choose somebody and put everything that's ran through their mind and everything that they've done for X number of time, said whoever, they would get up and run out of here out of embarrassment, because you would be mortified if people knew all the things that you say, think, or do that nobody else hears. God knows all that stuff. If you make somebody mad, if you hurt their feelings, if you do something wrong and you're apologizing and trying to save the relationship and fix things, it's very seldom that we come completely 100% clean of all the facts, all of our intentions, everything. We typically will say enough to show the person that we're sorry and that we want to fix stuff and we want to do better and get another chance and stuff like that. But you never share every single part of it, because if you did, nobody would forgive you. Some of the things that you've said or done, if you were totally honest with all your intentions, and what your thought process was and what you really wanted and all, the person would probably reject you, because if they could really see all the way into our heart and our mind and know what our motivations were, what our thoughts were, what we really wanted, and it's not good, it could put people in a situation where they're not going to forgive you. They're going to want to be away from you, and it's going to hurt you. And so you share enough to show them you're sincere, but you don't share everything. But with God, He knows everything. And so you have a situation where you're going to come face to face with somebody who knows every single thing about you. And there was a time in my life when I was thinking about that, and it's like, as much as I love Jesus and as much as I want to be with Jesus, the idea of seeing Him face to face, knowing that He knows every single thing I've ever said, done, or thought, it's terrifying. It's like, how could He still love me? How could He forgive me? And so there was literally a point where it's like, I almost, really truly wished that atheists were right and you just die and wink out, because the idea of being face to face with Jesus, knowing what He knows everything, and it was just terrifying. And it's hard to wrap your mind around that kind of love and that kind of forgiveness, but that's who God is, and that's who Jesus is, and that's what Him going to the cross and taking our penalty on Him is all about. That's what gives us reconciliation with God. Is what brings us so that we can be in His presence. There's only two kinds of people that get to go to heaven: perfect people and forgiven people. And Jesus is the only perfect person. He did what nobody else can do, and His righteousness gets imputed to us, and our sin gets accounted to Him, and He paid the price. People, they use different analogies and stuff trying to make people understand it. And it's like, you get pulled over for drunk driving. I think Cliff on Ask Cliff, or he says, if you get pulled over and you get hauled into court and you get there and your dad's the judge, and you go in, it's like, were you really drinking and driving? It's like, yeah, Dad, I messed up. I shouldn't have done it. And like, come on, Dad, let me off. Don't put me in jail. Don't find me a bunch of money I don't have, whatever. And then, he's like, are you still drunk? Because you can't be a just judge and not punish sin and punish evil. So the judge tells the son, says, your fine is $5,000, and if you can't pay your fine, then you're going to jail for a year. And it's like, Dad, I don't have that kind of money. I can't pay it. And then the judge says, that's the verdict. You either pay the $5,000 or you're going to jail for a year. And then the judge stands up, he takes off his robe, and he walks around by his son, and he puts down the $5,000, or writes a check for the $5,000, and pays the fine for his son, so his son doesn't have to go to jail. It's the same thing with God. God sent Jesus, who's God the Son, sent Him so that He could live that perfect life, so that He could be that perfect sacrifice, so He could take sin and punishment that we deserve, So that way we can be forgiven and can be in the presence of God. When God looks at us, he doesn't see us. He sees Jesus' righteousness. He didn't see our nastiness, Isaiah. Our best days, our best efforts, our best everything are as filthy rags to God. And when they say filthy rags, they're talking about like from a lady's menstrual cycle. They didn't have sanitary disposable stuff. They had rags and things. And it's saying that is what our best. God is so holy. He's so pure. He's so awesome. Our best compared to him is that awful. And so just imagine our worst. So it's another one of these videos where it's not as polished as I want it to be, but it's just it's got to be said. People need to know, and it's like I said, the purpose of this channel. I'm never going to be one of these polished PhD guys. I don't have the time. I work crazy. Things have been nuts at work. We're short staffed, and I'm not getting many days off, and I'm working a lot of long days. And so, as I get time, I still want to try to do videos because I feel like it's something that I'm really led to do and want to share. But they're going to be like this a lot of times. I think it's just going to be short videos, and hopefully I'll be able to do better and find all the information to be able to give better information as far as where the information came from, so people can look it up themselves. But I mean, literally on this stuff with evolution, you can just type in on Google mathematical challenges to Darwinism, and you will get tons of articles and tons of things will pop up that you can look at and see. And it talks about how things, aren't the way it seems. There's one of the things I looked at. It says that in particular, the 10 to the 40th number of events since the beginning of the Big Bang, and then you've got 10 to the 1,477th is the number of permutations possible. Says by reducing the size of the ribosome and artificially constraining atomic interactions to those of a comparatively easily understood mechanical model such as a Rubik's Cube, we have a simple way to calculate the lower bound for the number of possible permutations. The number of ways of arranging a Rubik's Cube with 20 elements per side is approximately 10 to the 1,477. So it's another one of those numbers where you have 10 to the 140th number of events since the Big Bang, but in this you have 10 to the 1,477th possible permutations of the ribosome. And this, it's going back to the same thing I was talking about with the yeast. So it just shows you how it's virtually impossible to be able to get to the number of years and time to be able to have allowed all the things that are supposedly taking place. There goes my video light. So anyways, I'm going to wrap it up there, but I hope you liked it. Love y'all. Take care.